Good morning, folks. It's December 31st, 2021, and just after 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm just below Jacinto Peak up there behind me, and I've retreated down to the summit hut because there's a 30-mile-an-hour wind at the peak, and the wind chill was about -3 Fahrenheit. It's about close to -20 centigrade. So this is a little bit more pleasant outside, out of the westerly wind. Came up this morning via Devil's Slide and the Wellman and Peak trails. My current plan is to descend via Deer Springs trail, see what's going on that way. As far as I can tell from my tracks, they're the first ascent, at least not using the tram, since I was up here last Friday when we had the biggest of 4 consecutive storms. As you can see, we have around here at the hut, it's just about 2 feet or so drifted in places. Spot where I measure that's pretty reliable has just about 22-23 inches, and then shovel the saddle junction, the summit junction, just down there at 10,500 feet, where it drifts pretty heavily. There's about 36 inches. So on average, I'm saying about 30 inches around Jacinto Peak. So that's an additional 7, 8, 9 inches from when I was up here a week ago. So up here, the 3 storms, very minor storms that we've had since, obviously haven't added very much. In fact, that addition is almost exactly the same as the amount of snow we've had in Idlewild with those 3 storms, somewhere in the sort of 6, 7, 8 inch range. In terms of trail conditions, Devil's Slide had some traffic. As far as Saddle Junction was pretty straightforward. I used spikes. Largely had to break trail from there, from Saddle Junction up to the peak, and initially post-holed for about 1.5 miles, then switched to snowshoes once it got beyond about 1 foot deep. Beautiful snowshoeing conditions between about 8,000 and 10,000. And then above that, it got very firm underneath. Snowshoes were still gripping, but on the angled slopes coming across the peak trail, it got pretty dicey. So I actually turned and came straight up slope, coming around the kind of east and then northeast sides of Jean Peak. So the peak trail in its entirety is not in at the moment. I did the first half mile or so up from Wellman Divide, and then the final section once you get close to the peak. Other than that, it's kind of off trail. Would actually be quite good with crampons and ice axe right now, or even crampons and maybe even crampons and poles, possibly spikes and poles. But I just stuck with my snowshoes, so took a different route. No sign of any tracks coming up Deer Springs Trail from the west side, but I'll report more on that in the text version of the trail report, which will be out this evening sometime. Currently here in the cloud. I did get some photos from the peak just before the cloud rolled in. No real likelihood of precipitation today, and then we've got a pretty rapid warm up. Stays fairly cool this weekend, probably not a huge amount of melting other than on the trees, from the trees where the sun comes out. But then particularly kind of into the second week of January, we've got some temperatures well above freezing even here at Jacinto Peak, and certainly there'll be rapid melting below 8,000 and then on the sun exposed slopes. Otherwise, as you can see, always a beautiful day at Jacinto Peak, and safe hiking everyone.